Boom. Okay. Perfect. So looking here at the weekly, hopefully this size makes more sense for you guys on the Zoom. I realized I had it on the whole widescreen. But with that said, right, we have, so we got the supply zone up here. This is the ES, right, continuous contract. And there actually are a couple spots like this supply zone up here I want to talk about, because really it's just this little guy, right? This little I mean, it's always based off of just one candle. So it technically would be this little candle up here. But the thing is, this zone matches up actually what's on SPX, right? And on the CFD. So this makes sense to include this whole thing. So anyways, that's why I based it off of, it's actually a combination, but you could just base it off of the, what candle is that? That's the March 21st candle from 2022. But anyways, that's the supply zones. And then obviously the all-time high, the last bullish week, the highest in price. And the reason that is the case is because, you're going up to the top of this wick, look to the left, we bump into this bearish candle. So we know obviously it's not, this is its own zone, but then we keep working our way back up in the next zone, which is above price and doesn't wick into anything, doesn't wick into another zone, of course, because it's all-time highs. So that makes that supply zone. That's why this is such a key area here. And if you look what we did, we'll talk about the demand zones in a second, but the big reason why I'm still staying bearish on this is because we had a perfect trend up. We tagged weekly supply and we got the close underneath. So now we're seeing this week here where it won't surprise me to see us close more bearish tomorrow. And then we'll have to see if this is just a pullback on the initial touch, or, like Monday, do we push up, tag this zone again, and then sell off for CPI, or vice versa, or maybe CPI pushes us up, but then we still get the rollover and sell off by Friday. I think we're going to be bearish. But the other reality is that we could push up and close above this 41.49 spot 75, which it's really 41.50 is the you could just remember that, right? 41.50, it's close enough. You're talking one tick difference. So on ES though, right? So 150 is really the mark we're looking for. And if we get a close above that, or at or above that, then that'll tell me, okay, something else has changed. So we actually have that will give us not a bullet. It's not a bullish signal like being above the zone, but at least at that point we can say, okay, we're probably going to chop around inside of this 41.50 to 42.81 zone. But this is the weekly supply. So until we get a weekly close above 42.81, we're not going anywhere. And I can say that confidently. You can see how well these weekly zones have played out. We created this bullish we created this bearish demand candle here on this is the one that we were just talking about, October 31st, right? This is a demand zone. This is the most recent demand zone. And you can see how we created this candle. Then we opened, we pushed up, we got above it, right? And price, you can see the reason this gets confirmed is you see how the next week after we closed up above it, we pushed down, and that was our support, right? It was right at that weekly demand level. So once we got this candle to close above, this became a demand zone, okay? And that's what happened the week of November the 14th, right? Opened, pushed down, we found support right around 39.1150, right around 39.12, right? I think the low, 39.1250 was the low of that week, right? And then we pushed up, ended up closing bearish on the week, but just barely, right? It was a very indecisive candle. So then the next week, but the thing is, bottom line is we closed above the demand. So we continued to trend up. Like I was saying at the time, this bullish candle here from September 6th, these were some like minor levels to pay attention to. But again, this is technically a supply candle, but the reality is that the next week opened and pushed up and tagged what is our dominant supply, right? And that is this 41.50 or 41.4975 on this chart up to 42.81. So like that's our dominant supply. That's what we are stuck, that's what we're fighting right now. So once that, we knew that this candle pushed up, right? Again, this isn't the major supply zone because then, like I said, this next candle pushed up into this one. But we do see some resistance here. If you imagine the line off of this September 6th candle where my cursor is right now, you can kind of look across and see see the interaction, right? Like you see how that's where we closed basically, a couple weeks ago. Long story short, right? We couldn't get above that. We trended down. We hit this demand zone again, which there are tons of buyers here because you can see we opened this candle here, came down, touched this, shot all the way up, right? That's where we rallied all the way up to 4180 on ES, right? And then ended up crashing back down and closing inside this demand zone. So now we had actually made it underneath the demand level and we were into the zone, right? And then we spent 2 weeks trading inside of the supply zone. This is where I was getting bearish. I thought we were going to break back down. We'd come up, we had tested this major supply, we fell, right? We crashed down, but that's just not what happened. This is where the buyers stepped up. This was mid-December. This week was of Christmas or the week after Christmas, right? That's why it starts on Tuesday, the 27th and not Monday, the 26th, because that day was closed. And then, and again, we closed inside and then this next week opened. This was the first week of January. Beginning of the year, and this is where this whole year has been nothing but up, right? This year has been from the open here from the first week, to the high was up, 8%. At this point, we're only up 5%, but that's still a pretty damn good climb for, a month and a half. So, long story short, we got the close back above demand on that January 3rd week, right? That first week of the year, we closed above demand. So the demand zone was 39.1150. That's the top of it, right? And we closed this candle at 39.1550. So literally 4 points, right, over the zone. But what that did is it showed us that we closed 4 points over the zone. So the next week we opened, we got the retest of demand, right? This is how we trade these, right? And this is why you can trade the weekly too. Got the retest of demand and we pushed up higher and we closed that week up here. Now that next week we opened and we came right back down, right? So here's the thing, like we can trade these weeklies, and I know I've talked on this before, but the big deal here is that like even when we got this close way up above, if you knew like this is the weekly demand, right? And I fault myself for not focusing more on this. Like I get sucked into the day trading a lot of times. I need to pay attention to this more. That's why I'm on top of it up here. Like I'm just, we're looking at it from a bearish perspective because we're coming into supply. But at the end of the day, this is the demand zone. And the reason that this candle that you had, AP, which was the January 17th candle, the reason this is not a demand zone either is because it wicks down. So that week opened, right, after we got this big close. And we chopped around, we tried to push higher, push lower, and we eventually came down and tested this demand zone again. Again, that 39.1150 all the way down to 37.7950. So like that's a big demand zone, but you can see how it still is in play because this, even though we got this big push up, it came down, it tested this demand zone again, and guess what? Buyers were still there because it's still a valid demand zone. So like if we come down hard for some reason, guess what? I'm watching 39.1150. As like there's going to be buyers somewhere inside of here, basically over 3,900. That's, that'll give us another signal if we see us starting to close down inside this demand zone again. Let's just say we do trend all the way back down, right? So anyways, because this wick down and buyers were picked up here to push this candle up and eventually close it up here at basically what, 39.88. This is not a demand zone of itself. This candle, right? This weekly candle is being dictated by this demand zone down here, right? Off of that October 31st candle. So this is the demand zone. It's the only one we have at the moment. And then you could see once we bounced, buyers were there. Then we managed to open here. We had a little bit of a dip. We pushed up, obviously rest is history, right? The thing is, last week, what we were watching, what I put out a tweet about, and a couple of them actually, I think, because it wasn't just at ES, it was SPX, it was SPX spot, it was the DXY, right? Closing, didn't close out, it didn't close above demand, but it closed right at the top of that demand zone on DXY. So we got to see where that closes this week as well. Definitely going to be important, but it's showing us that there's a reversal appearing, right? So that would match up with a reversal or rejection off of ES. So because we closed this candle here, 41.4975 is the supply zone. This candle closed at 41.4775. So again, 2 points shy, right? Fucking super tight. but 2 points shy of being inside the supply zone. It's not surprising to see this week open, get a retest. This is what I call the retest, right? So we hit the supply zone, we closed underneath, we open this next week, we push up, we get the retest of the zone, and now we're playing to the downside, right? It's the same way we trade the 5-minute candles, the hourly candles, whatever. These are the weekly candles. They just take longer to play out. And your entries have to be a lot wider, right? Like we don't know where this is going to turn around. We know we're going to get a retest, or we expect at least we're going to get a retest of the zone, but we don't know how high it's going to go. Maybe it would have gone up to 20 or 42.50, right? Instead of, what was that, 41.88. You know what I'm saying? Like, we just don't know. We could have pushed way up high and come crashing down. We could still close this week tomorrow above 41.49.75. Right. And if we do that, then that's going to say, okay, now we're kind of in that 50-50 zone where we don't know what price is going to do, but we know that it's not a bearish signal. Right. So that's kind of key. The way it's looking, because of the rejection from last week that we closed underneath, this makes sense that we trade down and at least close this week red. We don't know how far it's going to trend down tomorrow. And again, it doesn't even have to trend down. We could still close up a little bit. And this week is still technically red, because again, your entry really needs to be up here to play this candle, right? Obviously, there's intraday plays all over the place. So that's why this, like I said, that's why this January 17th candle is not a demand. And the main demand here is this candle off of the October 31st. And the same thing goes for this candle down here, okay? Because we had, this would look like, this is the October 10th candle. This would look like the demand zone. But the thing is, if you look and you see how price pushed down, and if you look, if this at any point goes through another demand zone or through a body of a bearish candle that's below the price. So again, I use my crosshairs, I look all the way to the left, and I see, okay, here's a body of a bearish candle, snap the lines on it, and now you have a demand zone, right? And you can see how this demand zone has been respected multiple weeks in a row. And because I come down to the bottom of this wick and I look to the left, and it puts me basically right here, which is, again, it's not inside the body of another bearish candle. This is just a bullish candle up here. The next bearish candle would be this guy here. And honestly, if you look where this wick's down to, it's really inside of this candle, this little tiny nothing candle. And again, that would be July 20th. Okay, that's really your next demand zone down, is July 20th candle. But doesn't matter, right? Because we know, sorry, I don't want to lose the so yeah, because we know, like, what I'm looking at is where this wick comes down to. If you look at where my cursor is and where my crosshairs go, this is still, like I said, this only wick down to, inside of a green candle, really just inside this gap. It's really interesting. But the bottom line is that this is your weekly demand. Okay. And because price does trend through that, but eventually closes above it, right? And even if it closed inside of it, right, it wouldn't matter, but this closed above it. And that's why, seeing this in retrospect, we closed above it. And then look what happened the next week. Buyers took us up. And that was actually, that's obviously our short-term or recent low, right? All-time low or whatever for this cycle. So I don't know, man. Hopefully that makes sense. It's really just practice.
Thank you. It does. Thank you so much.
Cool. Yeah, no, and I mean, and it's not just you. Obviously, other people that are interested in the zones are going to have the same question on this. So it's a really good example, and I'm glad we're able to just address it right now, because it's perfect. It works out, and it's the beginning of the call, so people can take a look at it and take a look at the chart. I mean, this is kind of exciting for anybody that's been, not that I want to be bearish forever, but the thing is, the charts are just screaming bearish, right?
Hey, traders, it's SJ.
Yeah, what's up? How you doing? I saw you
doing
here.
Much better. God, I'm doing a whole lot better. I haven't been trading because I've been teaching someone else how to trade, but I've been staying close with the zones and stuff like that. Well, it keeps me on my toes.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is I've noticed y'all have been trading the ES a lot. So is the ES is the futures. I've never traded ES before. So
well, you do when you trade the futures, though.
when I trade the futures. And I think I'm doing MES.
Yeah, but that's the same chart. That's just the micro version of the ES. So ES is the mini, which is the full contract, and the micro is literally just a tenth of the size of this, but the price remains the same.
The price.
Sometimes the price will be 25 cents. It'll be one tick different depending on which charting software you're looking at, but it's going to follow this to a T. So you can actually trade MES while watching this chart.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I haven't traded futures in a long time.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean that's so. But this is the chart that he charted. So AP charted in the practice. So this is why we're going over it. But if you look, here's the thing, right? If you look at SPX, right? Or if you look at SPX, let's just look at SPX in general. Let me clear this. All right. So looking for, if I want to find weekly supply, right? I'm looking at current price, right? Where did we wick up to? I look to the left and I see, boom, a body of another bullish candle, right? So this is our supply zone. Now, just to make sure that we're not going into another bullish candle, I look at where this candle, closed, and also where this wick kind of popped up, and I look to the left and there's no other, there's no other bullish candle, right? These are bearish candles because you're always consecutively. You can't just jump over to here and say, hey, look, here's a bullish candle, because you have, again, the next green candle is up here. So with that said, this is our supply zone. So you can see what happened here as well. Same thing, right? Same situation where we tested our weekly supply. It got rejected. We closed under it, right? Now the price is a little bit different as far as the distance, right? But it doesn't matter. This is the SPX spot. But if you look at SPX 500 USD, which I chart almost all the time, it's the same thing there too. So again, we're seeing the same thing across the board. But anyways, just to finish this thought, right? This is our supply zone. We got the rejection. We got the retest this week, and we're seeing lower prices. So that's playing out exactly as we expect, right? When we get a zone, we see it tested, get a close underneath. We expect to see a retest with the next candle being bearish, right? Now, if we closed up inside of it, then we couldn't say with any certainty that this candle is going to be red. But because we tested it and closed underneath this supply zone that's built off this candle, the body of this candle, right? We can say with certainty, or with some level of certainty, that this next candle we expect to be red. So once we get the retest, that's our bearish entry, and then we can play it down, right? And this is obviously weekly candles, so you're talking swing positions. If you're trading this, I would always give yourself at least 2 weeks on contracts, if not like 3 or 4. Just FYI. So same thing here. And let me show you even the DXY and how this correlates, right? Oops. We'll just look at this. Let me delete these zones. All right. So again, weekly zones here, right? Now, this is the inverse to a degree. So we're looking for a demand zone. So where was our lowest close? Right here, right? And our wick is way down to here. But if I look to the left, I see this is the bearish candle that closed underneath current price. Okay. When I say current price, I'm saying the lowest in the last, obviously current price has already bounced, so not a big surprise there. But, and where did we wick down to on this candle? Just to take a look. Well, we wick down, there's no bearish candle here, right? The next bearish candle is going to be this one, and it's inside of this candle. So again, this candle is our next demand zone down. But let's chart this one while we're, so I don't get too distracted. This is the DXY. This is why it correlates so well. And I'll zoom in and I'll show you guys where. And I put out a tweet on this. I posted charts on this, but again, I'm happy to hammer this home for anybody that maybe missed those or, doesn't quite get it. This is why we do these, and this is really important. So it's important in kind of understanding on where we may be going, this week. So again, that's our next demand zone. I'm not expecting us to get down to that, but that is just to see how, and you can tell, right? It's not this candle, it's this one because it's inside of that. So once you create this zone here, right? We traded inside of it and we popped up. Once this candle closed, this was a demand zone. Like once you get that candle above, and it makes sense that we create this zone. We know there's buyers in here. We know there's sellers, sellers kind of stopped us out. So right now, after that, this next 2 weeks before we get the move up, this is a struggle, right? We don't know if price is going to trend down and make this bullish candle a supply zone, or if price is going to trend up and make this a demand zone. We don't know that yet. So when we're, when you're in real time here, price is moving back and forth. We're in a battle, but see how the closes stayed inside of this body. So this is an inside, we had multiple inside weeks, right? Inside week, and then boom, we get this move up. And once we get this close above, now we can say, okay, this is a demand zone. This green candle is not a supply zone because we just got to close above. Okay. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like this was a supply zone already, although this, the top of this we would call resistance, but it's just that once this battle ensues here, it's kind of like, okay, I guess you could say this was the supply zone, but it doesn't really matter. Well, no, it does. So this was the supply zone temporarily. When this was like this, when this is all we saw, this was a supply zone because we got the close below. But the thing is, in real time, right, you see this battle ensuing. And imagine it looked like this, guys. Just I hope this makes sense. Like, imagine it looks like that. Okay, that's your supply zone. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm trying to keep it without giving it away technically, but imagine that's what you're seeing, a weekly close. So you just closed under. So now you have supply here, okay, and you have resistance at the top of this. So again, 99.126 is your resistance. Your supply zone, the bottom of that zone is 98.509. Now look what happens this next candle. Okay, boom, we pushed up, we closed inside of supply. That's all we know, right? So we're still waiting, okay? Then we get this candle, still inside of that supply zone. So we didn't break down below it again. So we're not getting a bearish signal. We're not getting a bullish signal. We just know there's a struggle going on here, okay? And then look where this candle wicks. Look where the bottom tick is on this candle. The low of this candle before it came up here and closed, but in real time, right? The low was 98.519. So you're talking 10 basis points, right? I think I have that right. 10 basis point, whatever, 0.01 off of the bottom of that supply zone. The thing is, once this candle pushes up and closes up here, this is no longer supply. This has been invalidated. And because of the way we look at price, right? We would then say, okay, boom, this is automatically demand. Okay, that's a demand zone because now we have it above. This is, again, this wick doesn't go into anything, right? This is the lowest close and this is inside of it. So that's why, hopefully that makes sense too, right? And then as we trend up, obviously we would say, okay, price is trending up. At this point, when we come down and we see this, we're thinking, okay, maybe price is going to come down and touch this demand zone. Now, there are other, obviously, daily demands. There's smaller demand zones that still carry some weight. And this is the DXY. So again, a lot of things can move this. But I want to show you something else. You know how people talk about fair value gaps? I don't know if anybody follows that shit or not, but fair value gap, right? It's when you see this struggle like this and then you have a big move up, okay? These fair value gaps tend to get closed or at least halfway closed, okay? You can see how price moved back down, right? Almost closed that gap, but look where it did come to. It came almost to that wick. So it basically closed that fair value gap that would have been drawn, I think, off of here. We have that. Yeah, let's see. No, it's not going to do it because it's already been closed. Anyways,
do you trade that now, traders?
Huh?
Do you trade with the fair value gap? You saying that's a good thing?
No, I don't put it on, man. It's just one more thing. The zones verify that. I guarantee I can find you daily demand right here that came in, right? So if you had demand here, you got this push down, you're getting pretty close. Actually, this would have been the demand zone. So there's reasons that this bounced. It's something to pay attention to. When if you're looking at the daily, especially, see how we chopped here, then we chopped and we had this big push up. It's the same reason that the volume profile works. If you looked at the volume profile here, okay, you would have candles kind of coming out to here. You'd have candles, you'd see here, you'd see a whole bunch, the volume profile candles would come way out because there's a whole bunch of volume inside of this struggle, okay? Here, there's a little less, but when you get this big gap up like this, that's just trending up, the volume tends to be less, okay? Because you're not having that struggle. This is just people who are in these trades are just moving up. And again, this is the DXY. So this is moved by a lot of different, parts of the market. The banks move this, the Fed moves it, all that shit. Other currencies move the DXY. There's at the end of the day, treasuries move DXY, I believe, but there's other factors, right? So when you see this, you would see a big hole in the volume profile. And then up here, these candles would start coming out again. So it would look, it looks something like that, kind of like if you had a trend line on it, right? Or whatever, matching all the tips of the histogram. You guys know what I'm talking about with volume profile, right? The rectangular bars that come off from the side, right? And they give you, the longer they are, the more volume was around that price. And what you see is in these gaps, you'll see price kind of fall down and bounce in the middle where the lowest volume's at. Now, maybe that lowest volume was more like right here, and we did dip under it a little bit, but it's so you'll see that match up with the fair value gaps. You'll see a lot of things come together because it's talking about the same information. And that's something that's really important to, remember when you're talking about price action, or you're trying to understand like price action on a chart. There's all these different indicators, all these different ways of like analyzing it, but it's talking about the same thing, right? You're always talking about the same thing that happened, as long as you're looking at the same ticker, obviously, right? Like price, you literally had buyers and sellers. Buyers did one thing, sellers did another. They battled it out. One of them won, one of them went away, one of them got more people together, whatever, right? Like somehow that balance becomes, one-sided or more one-sided than the other. And price either moves up or down outside of that struggle area. When you have big gaps like this, you're not going to see a bounce until you start getting down towards the bottom, right? Because once that gap, like once this broke here, you can see that big push, right? Once this candle broke and came slamming down, I guarantee the volume stepped up right inside of here. And you can see how it chopped. These are daily candles, right? And you have this big dip down, something bought that up quick, right? That was probably something in the markets. What was that, So that was May 5th, 2022. That was actually coming into our bottom there for a while, right? This big push down. What was that, May 30th? So June lows, remember, on the market for a while there. There was this correlation that shouldn't have existed with DXY, but we won't get into that. So anyways, that's my point, I guess. This is the fair value gap. It's going to coincide, like you're always looking at the same information. So the reason I don't put it on my charts is because it's one more thing that I need to like pay attention to and try to analyze. And at the end of the day, it does me absolutely no good to try to trade it, because what I use already is successful. So it's not that I have anything against it. You guys are welcome to like talk about it. I can answer questions on it. I'm not an expert, but I definitely understand. And I have played around with fair value gaps, but the more that I trade with them, I even tried it recently, right? I tried putting them on my charts, and at the end of the day, it was like, it's just not worth having on. Yeah, we fill them, but like the zones are where, the zones make way more sense to me. So anyways, there's that. I know we're on a whole side note here, but let me show you the weekly. My point here with the weekly demand, right? Just to go back into it. And this is a good questions, by the way. So, this is a good thread on this. So I'm hoping it's useful to everybody. This was our demand zone that was created for whatever reason, right? You could say the fair value gap, volume profile, the fact that, there was a big gap in volume, basically, right? Like we just didn't have a lot of price action. So if you were looking to buy, you're going to do it down here where we were stair stepping a little bit, right? And that is basically where we came down and wick to. Our bottom wick was basically the top wick of this week. So with that said, this is our demand zone, okay? As this candle pushes up again, now remember, at the time, this was supply, okay? So at the time of this candle pushing up, right? If you're looking at it like that, right? That's what you're seeing. This is a supply zone up here based off of this, what was that, May 9th candle, okay? So these are weekly candles again, but again, that was your supply and we closed inside of it. So if you're trying to be bullish DXY, right? Or say you're trying to be bearish, you're like, well, you didn't get a bearish signal. You didn't get a test and then the close below. We pushed right inside the zone and closed. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we'd have to sit and wait. And what do we do the next week? Well, we have a little bit of a battle, right? You push up, push down. At the end of the day, or at the end of the week, I should say, we closed above the resistance, the top of that supply zone. So now we got a bullish close. Okay. So now we're looking for the retest. The next week was a retest, right? It came back into that supply zone, tested it. Okay. actually closed inside of it. So it's like, okay, did you already buy in? Right. Maybe. And when I say this, are you shorting like the, you can't short the DXY, but you can short the Euro USD, right? You can short the Euro, you can short the yuan, you can, or the yen, whatever it is you're trading against. So again, this was the retest though. Okay. You got to look at the charts like this, no matter if you're trading a derivative off of this. If this is the underlying, you just kind of got to do that math in your head, or do that directional understanding in your head. So we got the pullback. This was the retest week. Here we have another bullish pop. Closes a little bit higher, right? Didn't go as high intra week, but we did close higher. That's what we want to see. And we're back up outside of that supply zone again. And what happens the next week and the week after? Boom, boom, right? And at this point, this supply zone goes away. Okay. This means nothing. This is we know that this is demand. Again, prices trended way up. So we have a demand zone here. We actually have a secondary demand here, which is right here, right? Because again, this candle only wicked down to here. It didn't wick down and into this demand zone. So again, there's something else going on here. Now you could say it's off of, the old test here of the supply zone. That's fine. But in order to get a signal, right? And the reason this works, and you guys can see it already right here on this candle, hopefully, the reason that why you adjust the zones and the reason it works is that now price pushed up, right? Came back down. And look at here. If you waited for 104.65, 104.65, right? Because that's your demand zone. Well, we got a perfect test of that, right? I mean, that is, what's that? That's the low is 104.636. So again, pretty much perfect on. I mean, you're talking pennies. So, and tenths of a penny. So anyways, that's why I know this works. Now at this point in time, this demand zone has already been beat. Okay. And you can see how this held up over here, guys. So like, this is why, like, I've had this demand zone on my charts for a while. We came down into it. It looked like it was going to hold. We got the bounce back out of it. Then we had another week that dipped under, did all this shit, but it closed above it again. And then we had this week and it trended down. We closed inside, and then we finally got that close underneath. And once we get this close here, it invalidates this and this goes away. Poof, gone, right? There are supply zones in here. I'm not just trying to skip all that, but hopefully that story, you can kind of get the story of the candles, right? And how we would use that, and how, why we're at the point that we're at now. So now in today's situation, even though we dipped way down here last week, right? And that scared a lot of shorts out. A lot of people got bullish. It was a very, distinct move. And it's the flush, in my opinion, that was needed to really kind of bump everybody out. Because at the end of the day, this is why we wait for the weekly closes. And look what happened. DXY ran up and it closed. It didn't close above. This is what I was saying in the beginning there, right? It didn't close. DXY did not close above the demand zone. So it's really important to see what we do this week. But it closed. I mean, our close was what? 102.992. So 102.992, right? Away from 103.025. So again, if you hold over the candle, right, you can see up here in the top left, if it's not too small, right? As I hold over the candle, you can see the close was 102.992. So my point is that we're very close for a breakout on DXY, right? And then if we go to ES and we look, we got the legitimate, right? Even on the futures contract, which is normally the last one to fucking budge besides DXY, we got the close, we got the test and then the rejection by pennies of the weekly on that futures contract, right? So now we're seeing the pullback. So that's why I look at this and I know that we could still push up, and let's say we close bearish this week. Next week could still be a bullish close on the weekly. We could be up inside that supply zone. That's 100% reasonable. But to me, it's worth a risk of putting on some shorts, which I have, obviously. I still have some ES shorts, or SPX shorts, and I obviously have NVIDIA. I still have some Tesla that's floating, that are March and in June or July closes, right? Depending on which ticker we're talking about. And I'm happy keeping those on and kind of doubling down or trying to manage that situation a little bit, because I'm still seeing enough indication here that we have, I mean, I don't see a bullish close yet, you know. Now, if we close over 41.50, right, we close a week over 41.50, then I'll start to ease out of those, right? Hopefully by that point, I'll have obviously taken some profits on some of these. But so anyways, that's it with the EOS for the DXY. The next demand zone down that we're looking at is 39.1150. So if we see capitulation, probably not tomorrow, but could be, right? But going into next week, say we see some massive downside, we break 4K. The next stop is obviously 3,900, but just keep in mind that 39.1150 on the ES contract, excuse me, is, you know, that is demand, and we could easily just bottom tick that and bounce off, right? We don't even have to hit it the first week. So don't get greedy, I guess is my point, right? 39.50 is probably a good spot to aim for. You know, we'll see what happens in here. So you may even see, and of course, go on to the daily charts, right? We can go to the daily charts and I can find, you know, daily demand, you know, all over the place. So like here, I'm looking below price. There's this bearish candle here, but where does that close, right? That closes just above, I don't know if you guys just can see that, this candle here, okay? So that's in the body of this candle. Now, this candle wicks way down here, right? But again, it ends here. It's inside the body of a green candle, a bullish candle. So that's not, again, this is a valid demand zone here. Now this next candle over to the left of it, it's actually closed above it. So again, that's not that, we don't care about that. We want the lower close. It's very simple. It's very close to this, but the way that you can check this, as always, is you come over here, you snap a line on it. Okay. Snap a line on the body. Oops. Right. So that you've made your zone, and zoom in or check the prices, right? You can always check the close when you're hovering over the candle and check the prices, but you can see now this makes sense. We had this big push up, price came all the way back down. And why did we bounce and hold here? Well, it's because there's a demand zone here, and we know there's buyers sitting here. Okay. There's a bunch of buyers, and they're sitting lower than this as well. But as far as a daily close goes, right? We saw this close here on ES. This is at 5 p.m. Eastern time, right? This is the futures contract, but we close here, right here. Well, guess what? The next day, right? This was the 30th to the 31st. We popped up overnight. We popped up between 5 and 6, right? We gapped up to here. We opened over top of that daily, fucking boom, dropped down. We got a big push down, but buyers were here. Now we go on smaller time frames than this to find why we bounced here. Maybe it was because this was the supply zone at one time, right? It's why you'll see me leave these levels. You'll see me do them like this, like at a dotted line, right? Once that's done, sometimes, normally I get rid of the bottom one, but I'll at least keep something here because I know that, okay, price wicks down here. If it starts pushing back up intraday, well, guess what? You can probably go long here, you know, and just know that, hey, again, these are daily zones. They should be gray. Hopefully this isn't fucking people up. I'm going to delete these ones, but I just want to show, everybody like what the thought process is. And here we are. We push all the way up. We get this nice close above daily supply. Because remember, this is supply right now. Unless, yeah, no, that's supply. And no, you know what? This was our daily supply. But anyways, not to confuse all that. Again, that's just one more way to do candles. So we could go at this all day. I mean, if anyone has any questions, definitely ask. But hopefully that's making sense what I'm saying. Because that's really simple. It's daily, weekly, 1 hour, 5 minute. Makes no fucking difference, right? Like it's the same process. And it's just how long do you have to wait, you know? So, and keep in mind, see how we wick down here to this level? There's buyers here, right? This is this January 17th candle. Like there are buyers sitting inside this. You could mark this just so that you understand, like, hey, this is where that weekly, mark it with the dotted lines. Just know that this is not the main demand zone. Right? If you're not going to be able to get a clear signal off of here, you just know that, hey, there's probably going to be some buyers when we push down to here, but look, it's right where 4K is. So of course there's going to be buyers here, and I can zoom in on the daily, on the hourly, and find levels inside of here to trade intraday. So I would call this like a speed bump zone more than anything, but we know because this candle wicks on the weekly all the way down to this demand zone, that price eventually, if price is starting to push down here, price is going to go down to this demand zone. More than likely, it's, may take a month to get there, but price is going to go to 39.11 most likely. If we don't close next week back up inside of here, if this isn't just a pullback and then we get a push up and we close above 41.50, I can almost guarantee you that we're going to go down and see 39.11.50. So anyways, any questions on that? That's kind of been the whole focus of the class, but hopefully it's interesting.
Hey, traders, okay, so that part where you just talked about that last piece, like revisiting that 39.11, can you just go over that little piece again for me?
Yeah, it's just that's weekly demand. So if we don't close, so next week, because we came up, we tested the weekly supply up here, this green zone, right? 41.50 basically, 41.49.75 on this chart. Because we tested that and we actually closed underneath it by like $2. This week I expect to be red, to close red. So tomorrow's at cash close or at 5 p.m. really to end the week. I expect this to be red, this candle to be red. I don't know where it's going to be. I assume it's going to be a little bit lower than where we're at. And most likely I expect it to be down near 4K, but maybe I'm too hopeful, but anyways, that's what I expect for this week. If next week doesn't, close at the end of next week, if it doesn't close above 41.50, right, inside of the supply zone, I can almost guarantee that price is going to come down and at least touch 39.11.50. All right, because that's what the charts are saying, right? We've come up, we've tested supply. Sellers are in control here, right? They were in control at the end of last week. They've been in control today as far as this area goes. And then, and again, if next week they stay in control, because most likely next week we'll see a pop to where we attempt to test 41.50 again, depending on where we close the end of this week. And then obviously, I'm not saying that we have to go to 41.50, but we're probably going to see an attempt on 41.50, right? We're going to see price push up. If sellers still step in and push us down and we close that week red, so by, 8 days from now, then I can almost guarantee that we will see 39.11.50. When we get down there, I don't know if buyers will be strong enough to keep us up, right? Maybe they are. Maybe we chop around a little bit in between this. We'll have to see when we get there. But that's kind of my first target. So I want to see what we do next week. But if we push up near 41.50 and it looks like we're struggling, it's going to be worth it for me to put on some more shorts, a couple weeks out. And hopefully we do that on Monday. CPI comes out pretty quick. So I'm almost thinking, you guys, that we could see a pop on CPI, but not a strong pop, something that gets up, pushes up and then gets faded like the next day or by Thursday. And we could see a sell off into the end of the week. We'll have to see what happens, but that is something I've been considering. I think we'll see a hot CPI print, but I don't know. There's enough variables that they fucking, it bothers me how much stuff has changed, or it doesn't bother me, but it makes me, I understand that like things are not, they're not equal across the board. Right. So anyways, does that make sense though, Kim?
Yes.
Cool. And I'm happy to answer questions, whatever. I mean, this is a clean chart to me. Like, I'm very happy with where we've ended up. I'm kind of excited because now we have a pretty clear indication. I was pumped last week. Now, if we had closed above it, I would have been just as happy because we would have finally gotten a clear signal. Us closing down here is confusing as fuck because I know we have the supply up top. I also know we have this minor area here. And where did we close, right? Watch this shit. Look where we closed the week before last, right? We closed just inside of this minor supply area I was talking about. Now, I know it's not the main supply zone because we immediately opened, the week after that zone was formed, pushed up and price tested this zone. But I know this is still a legitimate area to pay attention to, especially on the weekly, right? And you can see how we interacted with it here. We eventually ended up testing this supply zone, but that was 2 weeks later. So, I mean, intraday shit can get, like, it can feel like forever, right? Like, okay, well, when is this going to happen? But anyways, my point is 2 weeks ago, we closed just inside of it, right? So it's like, yeah, that might be bearish, but it's really hard to fucking say, honestly, because look, we're kind of in between the two main zones here. And lo and behold, last week we did push up and higher and tested obviously 41.20 or 41 or 42.18, 42.20 almost on ES. And right, what was the high on? Yeah, 40 or 40. The high was 42.08. Or yeah, I'm sorry, 42.10, not 42.20. Anyways, you know where this candle went up to. We tested it, but we closed underneath. So now we have a signal. My point is, right? Even if we closed above, I would have been excited because we had a signal. We had a clear signal. Okay, if we closed inside of the supply zone, there's a good chance we're going to continue up and still at least chop around, right? Inside of the zone. The zone is big. We can trade, we can trade intraday the zone for fucking weeks on end if we have to. We did it down here in the demand zone. We just traded back and forth. So it was a great range, the daily looked even better. I mean, I'm sure you all remember, but this was our daily. I mean, we spent from, what was it, December 19th to, January 6th. Like this was a great range to trade inside of for the most part. And look at the daily. Look at how this interacted with the daily, right? These are weekly zones now, but you're going to see a fractal. We got the push up. This was on Friday, January 6th. We got that close above. So we open up January 9th, right? That Monday after. We push up, we struggle, but guess what? Even though it was closed red, we're still above this weekly zone. And what happened? Price pushed up. It eventually came back down. We got the retest, right? After we got this breakout, you could say this was a retest. You could say this was, but again, these are weekly zones. So you got to look at the weekly, right? And when you look at the weekly, you see that we got the close. Well, no, we did get 2 retests. Yeah. So anyways, we got 2 retests. The point is, I guess, this is all normal, but when we got this pullback to this weekly zone, to this 39.11 again, this became very evident on Thursday, January 19th, that because we closed the day above, this next day, Friday, was going to be bullish. And what did we do? We retested, right? What was our retest? Perfectly right on weekly demand, right? We came down, the low of that Friday is 39.1175. So you're literally one tick above the demand zone. This, again, this 39.1150, and then boom, shot up, right? That was the low. So, and that's why we've been in this whole year since the beginning of this, beginning of this year was right there. So this bearish candle, right? This is where we started off the year, and it's been nothing but up from here. We're up like 5%. So, and we were up like 8%. So that's why people say it's been the best, it's been the best like start to a year. Well, that's great, right? That sounds awesome. But when I look at the charts, it's kind of like, well, no shit, right? But what have we hit? And I don't mean that to anybody here, right? I see this stuff on Twitter and I'm like, I get it. Like, it sounds great. Like best year yet, best start to a year. You got to look at the charts in perspective, right? What are we doing? We're still in a downtrend. We can't, so far we haven't been able to even get inside the fucking supply zone and close. And that's on a weekly. So like, we need to do that in order to say that this trend is turned around. We're there right now, right? We're hypothetically at that turn, but until you beat this zone, like this shit's not going anywhere, because there really wasn't another supply zone. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Right? Like we had this, like I said, we had this little weekly supply here, but that's not really that's not the main supply. This is really the first weekly supply since bottoming that we have encountered. Okay. And we just rejected it. So when people say the trend has changed, I beg to differ. Like I look at this and I'm like, the trend has not changed yet. This is the first main weekly supply that we've touched, right? They don't happen that often, but again, just because we didn't test this week, we haven't tested weekly supplies on the way down doesn't mean that, the trend in the market has changed. We've just kind of flattened out. If we continue to reject this could easily be the next leg down. It may not go straight down though. We may come down, bounce around here, push up, drop down. You know what I mean? Like it could do a lot of shit, but it doesn't, again, until we get a weekly close above 42.81, we haven't done jack shit. Like we haven't changed the higher or the low, the lower high situation. So there's my rant. What else we got? Anything else you guys want to look at? I know we can look at current, we can look at some of the daytime stuff if you want. What I'm thinking for tomorrow. Honestly, I feel like tomorrow it's just going to be, like I said, it's just, so here's the thing, keep in mind for tomorrow. We are at, let me double check this, but I'm pretty sure 4060. Yeah. 4060 spot 6 is our first deviation down, expected move on ES. or on SPX, not ES. But anyways, you know, and it's inside of this zone here. So let's watch what it does, right? 48, 40, 68, spot 8 here. And what I'll do, guys, is I'll throw in the I'll throw this in the trade ideas, these charts, as well as, you know what, I'll put it in the class recordings as well. Because I think that way, if you guys want to refer back to it, it's in the class recordings where I'll post the recording to this video eventually. It's also in the trade ideas, that last chart, but because this shit's important, right? This is just, and it's just a perspective. Doesn't mean that we can't be bullish, but it's like until I see, right, until we see some of these levels getting broken with on a closing basis, this shit, like all the rhetoric online, all the fundamental, all the macro shit, I mean, you know, it matters to a degree, but it really doesn't, right? As far as our intraday trading goes, we want to know where's price going to go in the short term, right? In the next week or two, because we're looking at a weekly chart. Well, this is screaming that it's been rejected and the sellers are still very much in control up here near 4,200. You know, obviously this whole zone matters, but 4,200, right? And that is basically where we went on ES. This is in control here. This is a dominant, you know, this is what matters. This is the key area. So anyways, intraday, right? Let's watch this zone here. I did just post that. Watch the expected move. I'm going to want to see a break below this 40.54 on SPX to really get bearish on down to the next level. But I think it's very possible. Let's see what's going to matter tonight, though. Here's the other thing. Tonight we have Chinese CPI. They're probably going to come in as a beat where they beat CPI and they're going to run it up. Now they've been doing QE, so there's always that chance that they get a negative print, but they're going to do more QE, or the QE is assumed. You know, I'm not an expert in China, obviously. I mean, I barely even follow it except recently, the last you know, year and a half, I should say, or year. Well, a year and a half at this point, but you know, it's played more of a key role. I don't trust the numbers that come out of China, but with that said, if they report good, we'll see a bounce overnight. We'll probably open a little bit higher. Okay. And if that's the case, then we're just going to play the zones. You know, we had this hourly demand that we broke finally. And once we did, we got that big flush down. That was the thing to watch that we had so much fun with today and after hours, fucking fighting that, or not after hours, but afternoon session. That's where we were trying to fight that close. We got the close below and boom, we got a big push down. So, you know, maybe we come up and retest that again. That's 4,100 on SPX. Wouldn't surprise me at all. What else? That's really about it, I'd say. You know, if we start to trend down, I mean, look, Nvidia came down and actually closed. No, actually it closed above. So the daily, this is what the daily looks like. Right? We finally gapped up over, right? And here's the kicker. We have yet to get we've yet to get a bullish close on the day above the supply zone. But you have to look at this and say, okay, price obviously opened, right? It closed here, it opened and it just closed. We did get a close. We got a daily close above the supply zone. So this is still looking very bullish. I'm still short this because I think it's going to come down. This is just a tricky, like that's a tricky chart, right? Like that's daily supply off of this here, right? There's nothing else up here. We didn't quite fill the gap, but man, we were close. We were all but there to fill the gap. So in my book, like that gap is pretty much filled. You know, but again, you see this, the reality is, yeah, we got to close a daily close above the supply zone, right? Above the resistance, which is the top of the supply zone, but we haven't gotten a bullish close. We don't have a bullish candle above. So it wouldn't, you know, all that aside, I think chips are due to come back down. Right now, where did it close after hours? Right on the fucking regular OG zone, right? I mean, it's literally where we wicked to, almost like a penny underneath. So again, 221.55 is my zone. This, you know, this thing closed, or the low was 221.52. So literally 3 pennies under this zone level. And that's why this zone matters. Now, again, this is, you know, I can look at this and say, this is an hourly zone, right? I know there's hourly demand here. Hopefully, you know, these things should start to stand out for you guys. Big time, right? You got hourly demand. Why is this hourly demand? It's because I look down underneath current price and I see where we have landed here, but I'm looking for a close, a bearish close. This candle stands out, right? It's here. I can already imagine the lines on the body, and now you see how price has interacted with this constantly, right? So the fact is, if buyers step in here overnight or going into tomorrow, it wouldn't surprise me at all. At all. You know, if I didn't have contracts for next week and I didn't have some conviction that this shit's going to come back down more, I would have closed anything I had right here. You know, I would have closed it when we pushed down earlier today. You know, that was the 3 p.m. So that was the final close where we dipped down and we got bought back up and we closed right here. So anyways, but again, so you see how that kind of plays out, right? Like that's your hourly demand. You know, it makes sense. It's also the zone right here. So I just don't put it in a lot of time, guys, because I know that like that's hourly demand, but we're right here on this OG zone. These zones I trust obviously quite a bit. And you can see how we've tested it previously and it dropped. This zone, this 219.22 to 221.55 is an area of interest for sure. And on the 4-hour, it stands out even more. Right. When I look at it throughout, you know, history here, I can see some interaction. I can see where we have held it in some smaller areas here as well. Yeah, we pushed through it here, but we went down to the next zone. Right. Even here where we gapped, we closed here and then we gapped down from it. Right. Like this is an area of interest that just stood out, you know, as I look back over time. Obviously, it had more interaction here. This is probably where I built the zone from. Actually, I'm positive there's nothing else before it. And this is back from 2021, you know, into pretty much all year or all second half of the year, right? Yeah, August to October. So it's an area of interest anyways. You know, I want to see it come down. Kind of frustrating that Nvidia's pushed up so much, but the payoff will be there if it comes down. It's also trending. Oh, that's something I wanted to point out that I missed today, or I just avoided, I ignored. Don't ignore the channels, right? We trended down in a channel all fucking day. And I sat there and just didn't even recognize it, you know? So it's not always the smartest. Anyways, that's the channel we're in right now. Yeah, people posting stuff. Yeah, Tesla, Netflix, and Nvidia go to the toilet tomorrow for flush. That's it, man. I'm with it. Let's do it. It looks like shit coming down. We break the EM on SPX, right? It's gonna get fun. So that's the thing, right? On SPX and NQ, you know, NASDAQ doesn't matter. We trended in this channel so much that this is an hourly chart, right? This is from fucking the 9 a.m. candle. We just trended down. How I missed this or I didn't catch this, I was so worried about this fucking side to side shit or this horizontal levels, which do matter. Don't get me wrong, they do matter, right? But the thing is, I knew we were inside this big ass candle, right? Why not trend down when things get weak? This is just shit. And you know what? That's what we did. We trended down the whole day. So this was a very easy day for people who weren't, you know, who were just on point with it. Sometimes, you know, you catch it. We still had a good day. I still had some good trades, but I ended up red on my main account, just because I had some big trades earlier this morning. And, you know, I think I ended up red on one of the cash accounts, but no, I don't know, just barely red, but I also have some other trades on there. I have the Nvidia trades on there as well. So, you know, let's try to catch these trends. I'm going to do the same, right? Same with this here, this channel. This was from, you know, that's 1 a.m. So we opened, I guess that was all overnight. You know, we opened, but continued this trend down basically, right? Whatever, you know, it's not the end of the world. This here, we are paying attention to this 4068. I already posted that chart, I think. Yeah, anything else you want to guys go over? You guys want to go over? If not, I will call it a night because it is 10:24. So this has been a solid hour class. Maybe, you know, hopefully this has been useful and insightful to everybody. So I like when we have good examples of price action and the shit that I'm looking for, because it's not always there, right? And a lot of times it's harder to find. But when you guys see these weekly charts like this, man, eat it up, right? Because this is where it's at. This is fucking, this is where the strategy rings true, and it's beautiful. And you see it on the daily. There's plenty of opportunities. A lot of times I need to expand my reach as well. It's something that we all should do. And just, you want to look for easy targets, right? A lot of these tickers, so it's like, I don't care about the momentum. I don't care about, you want like tickers that are liquid, but if you go through your watch list and you can start picking out where, hop on the daily and the weekly and just say, hey, is there something slamming into, oh, let's look at that real quick. Cause these were a couple trades we talked about this morning, right? Let's look at crowd. What crowd do? Remember, I pulled that up. I said, look, daily supply, right? Daily supply popped up. This was on the stream this morning. I think Danny maybe mentioned it, which is cool. And I always appreciate people that post trades or post ideas, and I'm happy to look at tickers, but I saw this daily supply, right? So we hop over here and we say, look, what did we do? Well, we pushed up at 9 o'clock and we missed it. This had already happened at that point, right? But this is on an hourly chart, right? We pushed up, we tested that daily supply, and we came down and we closed underneath. Now, at that point, we had already tested the hourly supply as well. See this blue line? That's going to be the bottom of your zone. If I was to finish this out, I'm not going to do it because that would be the zone though, right? So basically that daily level right there, 118.57 or 56 is going to be the top of that supply zone. Either way, we tested that now and we closed underneath. So when this 10 o'clock candle opened and pushed up, that was the short entry, and that would have played out lovely today, right? All the way right down to what? To this demand zone right here, almost perfectly, right? So this shit plays out great, and hindsight is 2020, guys. It's always going to be easier to see. Same thing for me. I look back on charts and I'm like, man, how did I fucking miss that? But, and this was a demand zone here, by the way, right? So intraday, this was our target. We talked about this, I think, on the stream. Well, I know we talked about it. I forget exactly when, but this was our target, and you would have actually hit that pretty quick, right? So if that's your first target, and then you're just holding, maybe you re-enter up here again. I mean, whatever the case, if you're looking at the hourly, you're going to see how this, we just trended down again, so again, hindsight's 2020, super easy to always look back and say, hey, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, but try to keep it in mind when you're looking forward, right? When you're starting to look, and why see how this candle wicks down? It doesn't wick into the main demand zone though, because it's this little guy is the one that closed the lowest. Okay. So that means that this candle is not demand. This candle is not demand. This candle is not demand. It is this one because it closed the lowest. So when I snap lines on this, right, I know that this is a demand zone that we still have to look out for. So if you're short crowd, you want to look out for 109.42 to 109.13 as your next big area if we get through this big demand zone here. Now, this is a bigger zone. It's a little bit annoying, but the reality is that, it's not about what we use these for are signals, right? If we bounced and we closed above, well, maybe we're going to get a bounce and push back up tomorrow, right? If you get an hourly close middle of the day or tomorrow morning, you can see overnight below that 113. Well, then you can say we're probably going to come down and test 111.16. And then if we get a close below that, then we can say, okay, intraday, well, we're probably going to push down to this 109.42 in this lower zone. And we know down here, because of the gap in price, that this is probably where the majority of the buyers are going to sit, right? You can get that when you get a condensed zone like this to where price may wick through, but it's, you got to watch where the close is. So anyways, that's just a little add-on. I don't want to make this too complicated, but, oh, the other one is Visa. And then I forget what the other one was. So Visa, same thing, right? We had that today. We were looking at, I don't think it's a daily zone. I think it was hourly that stood out. Yeah, it was the hourly supply. And I know I did this quickly on the stream, but I came over and looked at it and said, okay, hourly supply would be up here where that daily zone is, right? What did I do there? I think we had it. I forget what it was. I guess I just came up here and snapped this here. That would have been part of that with that. I don't know. Anyway, snap this in. And no matter what, I guess the daily is what I wanted to show you guys, but no matter what, right? We kept testing daily. You could say this is hourly. Even if you got the hourly here, you can see how we went up and tested it and fucking dropped. So, short Visa, was it a great trade? Maybe, I don't know. It's down at 229. So I guess if you got in at 232, right? You could pull a $2 or $3 move out of that. You know, Visa's cheap, so. But you're also, you know, you're trending underneath daily supply here, these two gray lines. So on a daily closing basis, like this looks good, but it doesn't. We just got another close underneath, right? So like eventually this looks like this thing could break down and at least come back down, you know, maybe test this 50-day moving average before bouncing and trying that supply again. So, you know, when I see this across the board, or not across the board, when I see this on a lot of different tickers, even Boeing looked like that, I think, right? No one already talking about Boeing bouncing in between the zones. Yeah, testing daily supply, right, off of this candle here. This gray zone that I don't have filled in because there's a regular zone here too. But again, we're testing that, we're holding underneath it. So nice rejections anyways. So, all right, guys, I'm going to cut it. If you have more questions, you can always post it in the chat. And we're going to be on Twitter tomorrow. So we'll do a space starting at like 9:05-ish. I'm going to try to, you know, be there early, but I know how that shit goes. So, yeah, hopefully we can all get on. We'll do Zoom too, of course. And hopefully have a good trending day that we can kick ass and take names. So.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it, traders.
Yes, sir. You have a good one, man.
All right, brother.
Sounds good to me too. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I see James, your chat. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, you guys take care. We'll SJ, nice to see you back. Kim, we'll see you in the morning. And yeah, guys, everything's good. Hopefully everybody's doing well. So
Doing good. Thank you. Talk to
yeah,
you later.
you're welcome. See ya.